Welcome back to Let the Journey Begin. I'm your host, Hilary Roberts, alongside my co-host and our executive director for RSF, Alex Meshi.
Hey, back with you on here. This is great.
I know. I'm so happy.
Yeah, we had, I've been with Ryan a couple weeks, been with Jason a couple weeks, and now you're here.
I'm back. Yeah. There was a lot going on, as you know. And, you know, when we finally did the town hall a couple weeks ago, I had been traveling literally for 2 weeks straight. But let's talk about that anyway.
Yeah, so back on the 10th, we had our town hall on mental health and suicide. And that was because of an event that happened in Ladera Ranch about 2 months prior to us doing the town hall. But suicide's become a very apparent topic lately, especially here in Orange County. About 3-4 weeks ago, the County of Orange released a dashboard that's publicly accessible that shows the suicide rate in real time. And the alarming number is that here in Orange County, we're seeing about 29 a month, which to me is way too many.
Gosh.
So we did our town hall. We brought some great speakers. We had Preston Durnford and a couple other members from SoCal Mental Health like Gil Carmona and Dr. Lawrence Tucker. Thank you to them. Also, we have the golf tournament that we're doing with Preston May 27th. So if you haven't registered, please do so. We're also still looking for sponsors. But we also brought local legend Otis Johnson to the podium.
Yeah.
And he crushed it.
Yes, he did.
So these town hall series, we started on January 31st. April 10th was our second one. Our next one's going to be sometime in July, so please stay tuned. We're looking at finding a location for that now. We're thinking about coping skills and healthy habits to kind of shift the slider more to positive energy. Really give our audience some takeaways to take home and share with their friends and family and bring some healing to the community.
Yeah. You know, it was really powerful for me. I just, we were talking before we started this podcast today, and I was thinking about how hard it was to tell certain truths about my life. And now it's so much easier because when I saw that it helped people, I was like, wow, I didn't want to, the more I shared about the dark things and the suicidal ideation and the pain that I went through, and I saw how it helped people when they saw coming to this place, and also getting to see how far I've come. And I'm just so grateful.
Yeah, you get to see how far you come. But more importantly, I think you help bring down the walls of that stigma.
Yeah.
That a lot of people ball that stuff up, never talk about it, and have to deal with that internal torture, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And as more people open up like yourself and talk about it, we get people like Preston, who has never presented publicly, literally quit school in 5th grade because the teacher asked him to give a presentation. And now we have him at our town hall a couple weeks back and crushes the presentation.
He killed me. I mean, that guy, all the stuff he's been through, it was amazing. And his heart is so big.
Totally. And if you don't know Preston Durnford, he's a guy that jumps out of planes for fun, started Epic Journey, which is all extreme sports, like literally adrenaline seeking.
Yeah.
And he said he's never gotten a bigger rush than standing up on that stage a couple weeks back.
I just love it.
So a few weeks ago, we had a great guest on our show. Her name's Danielle, and she was actually at a little dinner function that we had. And the couple times I got to meet Danielle, she mentioned her daughter, and that her daughter might be interested in joining us on her podcast. And we thought that would be a cool idea to get kind of two perspectives around the same or similar event. Now, granted, the two perspectives may obviously see the event differently, and that's kind of what we're here to explore, but really get the perspective from the child, because we got the mother's perspective. So now let's get the child's perspective. Kind of see the similarities, the differences, and really just kind of hear the story and where it went from there.
Yeah.
Mataya Provot, welcome. We had your mother. She was an absolute blast on our show. She's a great woman. I wish I knew her sooner because she's just a great positive energy and person to have around. Plus, with her coming to our dinner event, connected well with everybody that was there. And that event on the 26th, you can ask her, I'm sure she'd say the same thing, but it was a very beneficial event in connecting people all around the same cause. And it was cool to see the passion everybody held, maybe from a different avenue or angle. But you're here today, and today the spotlight is all yours. So welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, welcome. We're so glad you're here. And if you guys, you'll see her when the video comes out, but she's just beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, she's just beautiful. So
getting into the thicker part of it, one of the poignant things that your mother pointed out was the struggle that your dad had with his addiction and mental health. I guess the first question was, what was your interpretation of that? Because I know you were young. Granted, I'm assuming you probably know more about mental health and addiction today than you did back then. But do you remember what it was like back then, or what you were thinking and what was registering to you?
Honestly, I can remember pictures of my dad, like pictures that will pop up in my head. I don't remember exactly. I can't pinpoint like moments, but I can pinpoint like memories, and they aren't very good memories. And I was 8 years old when he passed away, so I can just remember him. I remember I have one picture of him in my head. I remember my therapist was like, what do you remember? And I said, I remember him coming into the garage in a wheelchair. And I couldn't understand the concept of addiction. I didn't know. I was 8. My sister was 4. And so I really couldn't wrap my head around it until he did pass away. And then my mom started struggling too. And then that was when I really realized, okay, this is addiction, and this is what happened.
And how old were you when you saw your mom struggling?
I think it was high school.
Okay,
it started in high school.
Call it about 5 to 7 years later.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was moving. So before my dad passed away, we were in Vegas, and then we moved to California. And I think it took when I was 15 years old, I realized that my mom is struggling and my dad lost his life to addiction. Mm-hmm. And I want to do everything I can to help my mom.
Gotcha. And what did you do from there? Or did you have any ideas on what you wanted to do? And before you answer, kind of the preface to this question. So we had another gal on our show. Her name was Natalia Taylor, Instagram influencer, but she has a degree in nuclear medicine because her grandma came down with cancer and she thought that was how she could help her grandma. Did you ever have that kind of notion of trying to understand or learn more or see how you could help? Or were you kind of in a position that I feel a lot of kids are in today where they kind of see what's going on. They might not fully understand it, but they have no idea what to even do or start or anything like that?
Well, actually, I wanted to bring up this story because I thought it was really meaningful. And with my mom's mentor, I went to two kids that were struggling, and their mom was home, and me and my sister went there, and I spoke to them, and I wasn't even ready to do that yet. And I had to stick through it, and I had to tell them that it's going to be okay, and the sun's going to rise tomorrow. And we ended up going to their house and helping them. And my sister played softball with the little girl for 7 years and didn't know that they both were struggling with the same thing. And I think it's more after that moment, I said, if they were honest about it, and I know they are young, it's not easy, but if they were to open up, the whole situation could be 100 times easier. Mm-hmm.
Did you ever feel like it was hard for you to open up? I know everybody kind of handles their story differently. Some are a little bit more open than others, especially when you talk about, family or culture or things like that. Was that the case for your friends and you? Like, did you ever have a struggle in opening it up, or was it something where when you were in front of the right person, whether it was a therapist or a mentor or something, that it just kind of came flowing?
100%. I had a really hard time opening up. I felt embarrassed. I felt as if nobody knew what I was going through. And at the end of the day, I realized when I got older that I would have conversations with my friends that did have family members that were struggling and went to recovery, and I could tell it was easier to talk about it with them. And then in my head, I'm like, well, I need to break that change. So talking about it, it's my story, and that defines me, and it helps other people open up, and it helps them feel comfortable talking to me about it. And there's no teaching without being honest.
That's true. That's true. So I want to ask you, when your dad passed, do you remember how you felt? Like, do you remember how you felt when, like, was it confusing or?
I remember not understanding anything at all. I had no idea what was going on. I was 8, so it's hard to remember. And also, I tried to block. I don't try to, but like when I think about it, it's like I have to really dig deep to like remember. And I remember my mom didn't know how to tell me and my sister. So my grandma flew to Vegas and told us. And then I remember I didn't understand it. Yeah. And then so we moved to California without him. And during that time too, I wasn't really around him. It wasn't a regular household. Like we were switching houses. Yeah. It was very different for me. But I remember just being confused and like coming to school to California alone really taught me to own it and just own my story, because nobody else can say it other than me.
That's true. That's true. Now, let me ask you this. When your mom was struggling and you wanted to help her, what were some of the things that you did? Like, sometimes we lose ourselves in trying to help the alcoholic and the addict. So what are some of the things that you're watching your mom go through this and you're like, oh, man. So what did you do?
I lost myself 100%. I did. That's why I wish I had something like this podcast when I was struggling. And I could listen and feel like I'm not alone. And this is an issue that I saw the other day. 6 million children struggle with alcohol addiction in the family. Yeah. It was as if like my mom was me, and like I tried to control every little thing she did, and I would act as if I was the mother of the house. Yeah. And I would subconsciously control every situation. And I honestly started to go through some mental health issues at 16 years old. And I really was struggling with anxiety. And it took me almost a year, to be honest, to a doctor. And I was scared they were going to like separate me from my sister and my mom. Yeah. And it was my therapist that I opened up to first. And my mom went to her, and she was around the time that she was struggling. And it was, to me, whenever my mom did something positive or did something to help herself, it was like, this is the best day ever. Like, and so I didn't want to go to therapy. And when she came back from therapy the day after she relapsed, she told me she felt a spark in herself, and that it really helped her. And so I went and I told her, and I was honest, and I got onto medication, and I went to my doctor, and I was honest with my doctor, and I gave it like a year. And therapy and medication are both the two combinations that have helped me get to where I am today. And I don't know, I'm really proud that I did that. And I can officially be at peace in my own head when I think about my trauma and my past. And before, it was like I wouldn't even know if this was ever going to end. And I honestly can't even believe I'm here right now. And I'm at this point, it doesn't end. I've just learned to work with it, and I've learned a lot of tools in therapy.
Yeah.
And I think therapy is an amazing way for children like me to get through what they're getting through.
We can't mention enough how important therapy and managing your mental health are. I mean, Jason had that post, a couple of years back asking, who here is familiar with, physical health, PE, stuff like that. We all went through PE in school, right? Mm-hmm. How many people had mental health? And it was like 1%, and that's the script that I think we need to work on flipping. And it's been starting to change. A lot more people are open to therapy, myself included. I never thought I'd be a person to utilize it. And, 3 years ago or about 2.5 years ago, I did. And I definitely saw the immense benefit, not just in my own feelings and satisfaction and fulfillment and things like that, but the repairing of relationships. Mm-hmm. Because once you're able to do that internal work, I feel like you're able to bring a much more authentic, truer self to the table in front of people. And everybody attaches to authenticity and genuinity, right? Mm-hmm. And when you can do that and you don't have to fake it or hide behind the pain and all that stuff, it's a lot easier to connect with people. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, while your mother was struggling, you mentioned that you basically had to kind of be mom, or subconsciously you thought you had to be mom and control everything. Mm-hmm. How did that affect your relationship with your mother?
With my mom? I love my mom to death, and I would just want to hug her and love her. And my mom's mentor would say to me, this is very rare that your feelings are not, there's no anger in your feelings towards her. And I think it was also a factor that played in that was also because it was just my mom. I don't have my dad here. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to guard her with my life. And once I stopped doing that this is one of my main points. We are two different people. I came to a realization that I could not fix her and that she had to want it on her own. And once I realized that, it all fell into place, and I was more peaceful with my own mind without controlling the situation. And talking back about therapy, the tools that I got from therapy into this with me controlling my mom, I learned to just step back and live my life how I want to separately, instead of categorizing my mom and me into one person. And therapy gave me the chance to pinpoint each trauma response that comes out in my life now that I'm 21 years old. Mm-hmm. And this has been happening since I was 16. But now that I'm 21 years old, I can tell when I have a trauma response, I can point out this is coming from this, and it helps me understand why I'm reacting like this.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I want to ask you stuff on that. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the tools they gave you, number one? And then I want to ask you after that, some of the trauma responses you recognize in yourself. So that's this is good stuff. Sorry, baby. So okay. That's some of the awesome solution stuff.
Yeah. Some tools that I learned from therapy is I've learned some tapping whenever I'm anxious. I'll tap.
Yeah.
it's consistent tapping. So consistent tapping is supposed to make you feel like you are safe. And to all the children that are struggling with addiction, the tapping is when you're a baby and you're born and your mom holds you and the heartbeat makes them feel safe. So if you were to a consistent tap like a heartbeat, it is scientifically supposed to help you feel safe. And it works. Breathing.
Yes.
Don't hold your breath. I have completely changed as a person with therapy. Like, I have learned so much. And a tool that I learned is that something that helps me if I'm ever thinking about my past or if I'm upset, I will do an act of service. Like, I'm a caregiver. So whenever I go to work, it's work and that's it. And I will leave my phone in my purse and not even go on it. And that has helped me tremendously. And without my therapist, I wouldn't have realized that tool.
Did they have you do grounding techniques?
Yeah, I did a EMDR. Yeah, I did EMDR.
Oh, good. Okay.
It's hard. Like, you have to bring up and think about your trauma, and that's not easy. But never having a thought of, I think that's helped me the most, the EMDR, because I think that's where my trauma responses come from. When I think about my past and I have these pictures in my head, and then EMDR, you're supposed to visualize the picture and feel the pain and feel those feelings. And I never felt those feelings until I did that. It was just, my dad passed away and my mom struggled, and that was that.
Yeah.
Yeah, a few things that are interesting. So first on EMDR, the visualization of pictures and those feelings. For our audience that are unfamiliar with EMDR, the idea is that you're going to use sensory stimuli either through lights, vibrations, or sound. And what that does is, in a positive setting, puts your brain into a managed sensory overload to where your limbic system now opens. The limbic system is where those pictures in your subconscious are stored that you might not be apparent, but sometimes they pop up. The idea is that a well-trained therapist in EMDR will help you manage basically bringing up the past and process it so that you can actually, do something with it in a healing environment.
Yeah, and those trauma responses will eventually decrease with that being said. And before I tried it, I said, I don't want to think about it. I don't want to get sad. I don't want to bring it up. I've already moved on. Like, I'm healthy. I'm mentally okay. Like, I don't need to do that. And what I got from that is I can see myself going through things where I will think about that visual picture in my head and my body's just calm.
Right.
Please tell us about your trauma responses and how those have gotten better.
Whenever I would have to be open about my past, I would just lose it. And therapy was a way for me to accept that it is okay to be honest, and it is okay to open up about what happened. And there are people like you. And I would have like mental breakdowns once a month, not even once a week. And it was just getting so out of hand, and I couldn't, it was just going downhill. And then that's when I realized I brought the medication in the picture, and I realized that this is a chemical imbalance, and I need to do the work to better myself.
Yeah. So can I ask, what did they diagnose you with and what medication?
General anxiety disorder and Zoloft.
Okay.
I tried Lexapro and I liked it. And then finding your antidepressant is like shopping. Like you have to try them all. You never pick your first one and that's the one. I started with Lexapro and now I'm on Zoloft, and I found Zoloft is for me.
Yeah.
And it completely like took away my breakdowns, and I can peacefully talk myself through my anxiety now with my tapping and my little voice in my head now that's positive and can help me. My little voice in my head before I was on Zoloft was not very nice to me. And now I can be positive and talk myself through something that I fear.
One thing I'd like to
So
share, bridging two things that you mentioned. One is your enjoyment of giving back because it helps you, right? The other is being open and vulnerable, especially in this setting, with our audience. And there's a quote from one of our board members, Brandy Ledford. It's actually on the cover of our deck. And the reason why we put it there is because to me, it's the most impactful thing. And for me personally, it's the reason why I push through the discomfort of certain things like public speaking or things like that. The quote is, "The reason I give back is so my experiences are not wasted." Your story is a very powerful one that you can share. And it's on the subject of codependency. I think that's a big chapter in what I've heard today. And I feel like a lot of kids especially, because I know for me personally, when I was younger, I thought my parents were the end all be all, they are it. They're who I follow, this and that. And certain parts along the road, you kind of see that they're people. We put them on a pedestal when we're children, and then that pedestal kind of lowers. And now my relationship with my parents, they're my parents. I respect them as such, but they're also my best friends and my confidants. I could tell them anything at this point, but that wasn't always the case. To me, it sounds like you're kind of along that same path where your relationship with your mom now is probably closer than it's ever been. Partially because you were able to do the work on yourself and break out of that codependency cycle where you felt like you had to be mom. You let mom be mom. You let Mataya be Mataya. And you guys come together and have a beautiful relationship now.
Yeah.
Does that sound about right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's more of the fact that when I talked to my mom, it used to be it was just uncomfortable. Like I was scared that she would think I was assuming she was struggling when I was talking with her. And then she would make a face like she was upset, but we would just never talk about it. And it was really hard. And now I can deal with those things. Is she struggling? Is she not struggling? I can deal with that with my therapist. And with me opening up about that with my therapist, it allows me to have an open relationship with my mom and not allow those feelings that don't need to be there.
Totally. And I think it's kind of like Jason's mentality, right? Don't take your car to the mechanic and tell him how to fix it. You let your mom go to the therapist and she got her work done, and you on your side got your work done, rather than you trying to fix mom or vice versa, or this whole thing. Lean on the professionals. This is what they do. This is what they went to school for. Kind of separate, heal, come back together. And now the foundation you're standing on is so much stronger because you were both able to do your internal work, not only in tandem, but separate, so that each of you were able to grow without the effects of one another.
Yeah. So I have this question for you. Generally, the children of addicts or alcoholics have a much greater chance of being genetically predisposed to having struggles of their own. However, this is not always the case. Have you ever felt like you're set up to fail no matter what because of the fact both your parents struggled?
No, I don't. I feel like I'm one step ahead, and that I've seen it happen in front of me, and I know what it can do to you. And I've seen the hurt and the pain from it. And I think that that is a beautiful experience to take out of the pain and use that as a positive outlook on addiction.
So with that in mind and you being 21, how do you see drinking and drug use, especially, I mean, I would assume Gen Z have more access to alcohol with all these seltzers and beers, and then you have all these vapes and other things. How do you see that whole thing, especially with your friends being in that mix?
I'm always thinking about it in my head, even when I'm around alcohol and all of these new things. I'm thinking about the past and what that can do to me. And honestly, like, that's something I can work on, because I know I will be to a point where I can go somewhere and look at something and not feel upset. But I do know what, like, enough is enough. And I'm always thinking about what that can do.
So it's that heightened sense of awareness.
Yes.
It sounds similar to, now granted, I've been friends with Jason Waller since preschool, right? A big reason why we weren't very close during the high school years because he was on TV, and the couple times I went out with him and saw the binging and this and that, it literally scared the life out of me. It made it not fun or exciting or the glitz or glamour or this or that. And having that clear wherewithal to see that and be aware of it. Now, granted, my awareness came from my parents saying, if that's you, we're going to kill you. So it's like the fear of God being put into me. But being aware, right?
Yeah. To what you were saying, who you surround yourself with. I live in LA with 2 roommates, and they both live in a household with people who struggle. They lived in a household with people who struggle. And I don't know what I would do without them. Our conversations that we have are having them around me. I
love that.
So it's a solid support system, and it's in your house. That's huge.
That's so big.
And just that they know what can happen and what, like, the causes of what this can do to you. Like, just the fact that they know really makes the whole house better.
That's so good. So if you were to give our listeners, people that have struggled like you, maybe have addicted parents right now or going through a hard time, what would be one action for the day that you'd give them?
This is what I've been waiting for.
That's awesome.
I want to be a role model to these kids that are going through it, because I know you think this is never going to end and you are never going to get through this, but I promise you, if you have hope through the whole situation, you will come out alive.
So to have hope.
Yeah, hope.
Was it you talking to your friends about what was going on?
Having my friends. Honestly, I always needed somebody with me. I was never the one that would go cry by myself. Like, I always had to have somebody with me. So I would say to have hope through the people around you, and to just always surround yourself by people.
Lean on others for support.
Safe people. Always feel, when you have that safe feeling, that's what can give you a lot of hope.
Absolutely wonderful, Alex.
Yeah, thank you so much for
gosh.
joining us. I know it wasn't easy and we got into some heavy hitting things,
Yeah.
but I feel like your message is going to be able to help a lot of kids that have gone through something similar to your point. You felt alone. You really weren't. It's a matter of connecting these individuals through either support groups or through our podcast or through our foundation, other activities that we do, to really, to your point, provide that hope that help is available, resources are out there, and a positive way up is available. Now, is it going to be easy? Most likely not, probably not, but with a little bit of work and a little bit of motivation, I feel like anybody can get to a point where happiness and satisfaction and fulfillment are at the top of their list.
Yeah, it is possible.
And one thing I'd like to, an action, not just for the day, but an action that I would like to leave with you. I don't know if you're familiar or aware, but hugging people for 12 seconds or more creates a dopamine release, similar to petting a dog. Hug your mom for 12 seconds. That's a tool I'd like to give to you.
Thank you.
And it works. It's not just with your parents,
I will.
for our audience. Hug anybody that you like, preferably. 12 seconds. But a firm embrace, it's a Harvard study. It gives you a dopamine release. It's the same kind of release. Everybody knows that petting a dog makes you feel better. Hugging somebody for 12 seconds does the exact same thing. No
That's
dog
why we're
needed.
all so miserable through this COVID stuff, man.
And that's why you have 5
Yeah.
dogs.
I have 3 dogs and a cat.
But anyways, Mataya, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
This will be a very great podcast for a lot of kids to hear.
And grown-ups.
And grown-ups,
Hello.
yeah. And
Yeah,
grown-ups.
and one more last thing that I had to say, getting through the hard times of the process of healing, you have to push through that family therapy, push through the regular consistently therapy, your medication, your doctor, to always better yourself.
Absolutely.
That's fabulous.